Well, welcome to the Christy Jones Show, where it's all about living your life to the fullest. I'm a life coach, speaker, and business owner in multifamily real estate, and I've had wild success in multifamily housing for over 25 years now. I am so passionate about helping others merge their success and lead a fulfilling life, and I bring it all together right here on this podcast. So join me and let's get started to live your life to the fullest. Well, hey, my friend, welcome back to another week right here on the podcast where I love hanging out with you for this 30 minutes, maybe up to an hour that we get together each week. I really love that we get to have this time together, and thank you so much for being here. So today I'm going to go into a whole different area that I haven't gone before, only because my husband and I, we just went through. It was a year ago right now that we went through something really big, and it was a big one. When you get those big situations that come up in life. And so the other day we were sitting around and we were like, today marks 1 year. 1 year ago today, that day was unlike any other day that we had experienced. So I want to share a little bit about that with you. Most importantly, what I want to share with you is I want to give you some things to put in your toolkit of life. I talk about that a lot, like this tool bag that we have that we like stuff full of things that we learn, things that we know, practices that help us out. The personal development toolkit that gets you through those peaks and valleys of life. And what my hope is that when you focus more on your own personal growth and development, that like as you go through life, because there's going to be ups and downs, there's going to be peaks and valleys. But my hope is that those peaks and valleys, instead of it feeling like you're falling off a cliff, it feels like more of a speed bump. Because a speed bump, we can recover from that a whole lot faster than that feeling of we are falling off the side of a cliff. So that's what I want to talk to you about today is I'm going to tell you about what was going on for us a year ago. It was like on the 9th. So I'm recording this right at the anniversary of that and tell you what was going on for us. And most importantly, what you can take away from that to put in your toolkit of life so that the big like moments that are like peaks, valleys, feel like you're falling off the cliff, feel more like a speed bump, and they're much more manageable for you. All right. So, and again, thank you for being here. This is always like a fun time. I love recording the podcast episodes for you guys. I love hearing from you. So drop me your thoughts, your comments, your replies. Go to the show notes below and you'll see my email down there. And that's how easy it is. You can always DM me on social as well, but that's the quickest way is just drop into my email. Okay, so a year ago, it was summer, it was the end of July, and my husband had gone in just for a routine, forget exactly what it was called, but it was like a scan and imaging, and they were going to do a little minor exploratory thing on his heart. It was like a heart valve that they were going to just take a look at, and because to see, how's it doing, what's it look like. And so, anyways, we had gone into that appointment. It was an in and out, like a day, what's it called? It wasn't really a surgery. It was just like a day procedure. Anyways, we go in and and that went very quickly because that day we sat in that room, we were actually making plans. While we sat there waiting, we booked a trip to Cabo for the end of August. We had a family wedding to go to in Mexico City. Just, I think from that day that we were sitting there in that room, I think it was in 2 weeks, we were off to a family wedding that we had everything planned, and off we were going to go to watch them get married in Mexico City. And then while we sat there, I was like, hey, so we made some plans to go to Cabo later in that month. And anyways, neither here nor there. The point is that we had plans. Like we were just, we got this one little, doctor's appointment to do, but we were making plans for what the rest of the summer was going to look like and talking about that. So, and it was like I felt really confident that, that was going to be the case. They were going to have their do their minor procedure, take a look at something, and then give some feedback. That was basic. I mean, that's how I looked at it. So, anyways, that is not how it went at all. All that happened is they came back pretty quickly to tell us that he was going to have open heart surgery and a few other details in that, and had some serious blockages. So that obviously was the main conversation and the top of list item at that point. And so that proceeded. We had a little bit of time to prepare for that because it was, so give or take, we had about 8 days, and they set the surgery. So called off the going to the wedding, and we were still talking about, my husband and I are super optimistic, and we're like, oh, okay, well, we were going to do this at the end of August, and the surgeon that had come to talk to us was like, yeah, no, you're definitely not going to feel like doing that. So anyway, so we had those conversations, and it became clear how quickly things were going to move. So when you find yourself in a situation like that, where you're, all of a sudden things are taking a huge shift, and obviously this was a very, I mean, I'm not making light of this at all. This was a really big one. Like, this was some big news to get, and to realize how, if they could get him in sooner, they were going to, but otherwise, we were going to look at around 7 days from that point. And so I want to share with you some things that I learned through that process. And it's definitely not the first time I've been on the side of having someone that I love go through something really substantial in the medical, department. I've shared on here, on the blog, for sure, and in my coaching, the experience that I had gone through with my dad, and just being like a patient advocate, and how I served him in that way, in that capacity, when he was going through his thing. That was 11, 12 years ago when that had started. So this was really the first things, I would say, since then, where I had to pull from that toolkit of all the things that I had learned then 10, 12 years ago. And my brain was, like, it was going to my past experience to remember what I had learned and what I could do to be of most help, to show up in the best way possible, to support the person that I love. So I want to share with you some things on, what I've done and what I did just a year ago to prepare. I want to talk about some things regarding mindset that I believe are super important if you find yourself in that position. And then also some things to offer you while it's going on, like during the hospital stay, during the surgery. Something that, when something that significant is going on, it's super important that not only the patient, but also you as the support person, the partner, however you're connected to the person that's having to go through that journey. I want to give you some things that you could be doing to help in that process, like actually while it's going on. So I'm going to give you some things that you're going to want to pack in your toolkit for life, because we never want to have to be able to lean on these type of skills. I mean, and my hope is that you never have to, because, my friend, that would be ideal. But the reality is, things come up in life, and there's things that we have to deal with, and hardships happen, and health things come about. And so if you have your toolkit stocked ready and ready to support you and the person that's going through it, you're gonna like walk into it with more comfort, more confidence, and just more at ease, which is going to make everything so much better. So let me start by saying, okay, so I already told you it was like a year ago, and we got the news that he was going to have immediate open heart surgery, and I'm not going to go into all the details because that's not the point of this. The point of this is to give you the tools that you're going to want to have should you find yourself in a position to where someone you love is, given the news, has to, go through a procedure, and you want to be able to support them in the best way possible. You want to kind of shore up the situation. You want to be an asset to the situation and not a liability. I hope that makes sense, because that's a lot of how I look at this, is that you want to make sure that you are um, helping that person, and you are considered an asset to the situation, to the challenge, to the difficulty, and that you're not creating and bringing to the table, to the existing challenge. You're not bringing more that would just make it harder and messier, and you know that's none of us want to be the person that does that, right? So here, let me start by telling you some things on how I prepared, and prepared meaning in those few days, that week we had, which we knew the phone could ring at any time to come in earlier, and it really depended on condition of other patients. Of It's kind of like, there's people that had shown up that it absolutely had to happen right then. So we had like about a week's notice. So what's good to do during that time frame? And so here's some things to prepare at home. There's items that be thinking of what, because once things get busy, it's going to be a whole lot harder to like have the time to go to the store and get this. So think ahead, like start preparing your home for when you come home. What are some things that are going to be helpful to have? And these are really great conversations that you can have with the doctor's office, with a nurse. They can answer by email if you didn't think to ask it while you were there in front of the doctor. I mean, these are things that are great follow-up questions. So getting clear on what are some things that would be good for me to have at home. And a lot of times just be thinking of like patient comfort and like what's going to feel comfortable. Think about like when you don't feel good, what are the things that make you feel good? You just when you're, whether you have a cold, a flu, whatever, right? We all have those little things that help us feel more comfortable. Pillows, blankets. Just think about what is going to make home more comfortable for when we come home from the hospital. So gather those items up ahead of time. I know I had made sure I had enough pillows, and I washed well, one of the things before surgery, and I don't know if this is every doctor, but you had to sleep the night before. I mean, there's a whole like, cleansing process that needs to happen with certain like, what am I trying to say? With certain soaps. And then it has to be brand new clean sheets that you sleep on before you go in to the hospital. So being clear on those type of things, just like from a sanitary things that are going to help in that way, make sure you know those things, ask those questions. But I made sure I had, extra pillows, that we had, that I had the blankets washed and ready. Like when you're coming home from the hospital, you want to make sure that, use clean blankets, clean sheets. Everything needs to be fresh out of the washer. Like, let's not take a blanket that's been, in a closet and a bunch of people have used it. We want only, things that have been just washed and dried, and you've got that ready for when you come home. So think about the other items like, cups with straws. When we don't feel good, right? We don't want to have to manage a big glass. We want to just take a sip of water. So you may not need all of that, right? You might be over prepared, but I'd rather be over prepared than come home from the hospital and be underprepared and be like, crap, now, I don't want to leave and then run to the store. So just, it's okay to over prepare. One of the things is in terms of preparation that I did was when we got the news that this surgery was going to have to take place very quickly, and they explained, everything that was involved and the complexity of the procedure. When we got home, I knew that right now is when we need to focus our mindset. Now, I'm speaking from a spouse's perspective because I feel like I can't sit and speak in terms of the patient experience because that wasn't my experience and it's not my story to share and to explain, or my version is from the spouse side, from the support person side. You may not be a spouse, maybe it's a parent, or maybe it's an aunt or an uncle that find yourself in a situation with that you need to be of support to. So I'm sharing from the perspective of being the spouse. And what I came home and determined is I need to seriously dial in my mindset and make sure that, that I'm going into the next week with the frame of mind set exactly how is best. And so one of those key things I needed to do is I called my therapist and I said, I need to get a session in with you because it was really important to me to talk about this. I had been through a really long and heartbreaking ordeal with my dad, again, 10 years ago, but I hadn't had to be in that, ICU type of environment since then. And so I already was starting to feel a little anxious about that, and wanted to make sure that I was going to be able to be in that environment and to be effective in that environment for my husband. And so what I knew is that I needed to talk to my therapist, talk through some of the things that were coming up, that concerned me, that I wanted to make sure that I would just really, it's just talking it through, right? And share this with her. And it was really one of the best things that I did. And it may not be a therapist. It might be your pastor at church. It might be someone that's just a deep confidant for you. But to hold it within is a really heavy burden. And obviously, when you're walking that path with someone, there's a lot of responsibility in that. And you want to show up as your best self. And so give yourself the grace and give yourself the support that your mind and your soul honestly needs by talking with someone about what's coming up. Talk about your feelings, talk about what your concerns are, and what really helped for me on that specifically was her just reminding me. It just took that little bit of a reminder that what I had gone through in the past, how the successes from that and what I had learned on even the things that I really didn't maybe handle the best, that just literally broke my soul. But she had a way of reminding me, and it strengthened me. And so I immediately connected to the resilience and the strength that my mind and my body and my soul have. And that was really helpful. It was helpful mainly to just ground myself, to get clarity, and to really vocalize, like, I'm going to have to walk back into this environment that the last time I was in that environment, and all the feelings that came with that. So it was really good to talk that through with her. And now it wasn't this big scary monster of my feel, like I got it out in the open, right? And so it didn't have, when you kind of bury that and you're not acknowledging that I feel a little anxious about this, just being back in that kind of environment, and I want to be able to, be, be present and be thoughtful and mindful and be the best that I can be to help my husband, to help my loved one, right? And when I pack away the scary little monster and the little anxious feeling I was getting over that, I don't think that's helpful at all, because it's going to keep like rearing its little head up. And so by me talking to her and bringing this out and saying, yeah, I'm a little nervous about this. I'm a little nervous about this because it's, bringing, like, I'm thinking about that a lot. I haven't had to be in that environment in the ICU. I haven't had to do that in a long time. And then all the mixed feelings that come with that, right? And so it really took the power out of that anxious feeling. So I would really encourage you, when you're working through something big like this, to prepare your mind and talk to that person that you need to talk to. Like I said, it could be your therapist, it could be your pastor, it could be that one person that's just your, like, your confidant person. But reach out to them and talk to them, talk things through. The other thing that my husband and I did, is we went and just had a little quick, like, brush up meeting with our attorney, ours that does estate planning. And no, we already, and this is not like, oh, we went and did that right then. We did that years and years ago. Um, for those that don't know, because again, you would have to probably be in one of my coaching programs or master classes to know this. But when my husband and I got married, we had a negative net worth. There wasn't like this long list of things, but we, as we, got moving along, and still not much not much to, people say, oh, I don't need an estate plan, or I don't need a will, or I don't need this because I don't have anything. Well, but we started it in that situation. Like, we were those people, we didn't think we needed it. We didn't really have this whole list of things like you envision people that do estate planning. Years ago, that was not us, but we had 3 children, and we had a house. So we put an estate plan in place probably way early. I mean, it was really early, really early. And so I'm glad we did that. But we were really, like, I learned what that was, understood, all the things. Some of the terms have changed now on the medical side, like power of attorney and your medical, there's new terms on some of the medical documents, but because they've combined 2 of the forms, and I can't remember the name of that, but in general, we did all of the estate plan stuff way back in the day, way back in the day. And so through the years, obviously, that's something that if you don't know, okay, let me say this. If you're sitting there thinking, oh, I don't need an estate plan, I don't need a will, I don't need, You do. You really do. And I really encourage you to educate yourself on that because, people say, oh, well, I don't have anything, or I've heard all kinds of references on that. Trust me, educate yourself on it because that was us years ago. Years ago, yeah, that was us. But we still did it. There's so many reasons why you want to do it. So that's like a whole nother topic. But my main message right now is educate yourself on what that is. Find someone to talk to. Start, if you're not currently set up like that, educate yourself on it. Learn about it and find who that person is for you that can kind of get you going in that direction. So what we did, since all of that's already in place with us, but the reason I even bring that up is because I feel a lot of times when we get this kind of news, sometimes people just brush everything under the rug. And I don't think that's a wise thing to do. We get hit with hard information all the time in life and in business. And so we have to have that ability to manage our thoughts and manage our emotions in those hard times. I mean, nobody wants to talk about this stuff. Nobody wants to go, oh, hey, let's go talk to our estate planning attorney and make sure, we've got everything buttoned up. Nobody wants to do that. But to act like it doesn't exist is not healthy. It's not good. It's not going to benefit. So we made a quick little appointment just to make sure that, T's were crossed and I's were dotted and things like that. And just, that was really it. It was a really quick meeting. Just because we've had everything set in place for a lot of years. And so, I really encourage you, if you, find yourself in that situation where either of you are having, some sort of big procedure or a medical procedure done, don't negate the fact that you don't need to go look at your documents and double check your, you know, all your things, your healthcare proxy. I mean, it's important. I mean, it's just important. And a lot of people don't want to have to deal with that or think about it, but it's really like, it's actually a gift if you do your healthcare proxy while you're living, while you've got sound mind. I mean, it's honestly a gift to your family and your loved ones. So don't act like those things aren't problems and aren't decisions that have to be made. So just hit the challenge head on and know that it's just, these are things that deciding now and having things in place make life for your loved ones so much easier. Plus your wishes get to be, I mean, it's you speaking for you, right? So that was the last thing I wanted to touch on when we prepared for the surgery. So we just made a quick office visit, chit-chatted with him, which I mean, I consider our attorney just a really good state attorney, just very good friend at this point. So it was a really easy conversation, and just double checked on some things and we were good to go. And I also made sure that I had, going into the surgery, that I had all the documents that I would want to give them so they had it on file as well. And I'm talking about, like, your all the healthcare proxy and the POA and all that. You just want to make sure that they have that. And they generally request all of that, but make sure all of those documents are updated and everyone's got them set the way they want. And then make sure you have a digital version on you and also a hard copy version. So that's part of the preparation. And so a lot of this, when you hear me talk about the preparation, is you've just gotten like life-changing news. And it's like you have to, to prepare, you need to then go to that toolkit, get your mind right, get your environment right. I talked about getting your home right, get your environment set, get your mind right, set, prepared, and then taking care of some of the the technical things, like I talked about with the will and the trust and all of that. And so get with your estate planning attorney. On mindset, it's really critical that you optimize every opportunity for you to keep your mindset where you want it. Our brains are so good at I can't say that word, catastrophizing. You know what I'm saying. Our brains are so good at that, right? It's always looking for fear and danger and all of that. And so we have to tell when that starts to happen, we need to go pump the brakes and be like, whoa, hang on. This is just our brain doing what it does best, is looking for problems, looking for fear, looking for danger. And that's what our brain does, our primitive brain. And it kind of sneaks up on you, but it can easily do that. So make sure that you really take control of your thought world, because your thoughts are going to determine everything. And do what you need to do, because this is a condensed amount of time, right? That you're going through preparing for something that's really, it's really big. And so do what you need to do to optimize your brain and to keep your mind positive. And definitely don't go into catastrophizing everything, because that's the brain just likes to do that. It just goes back to primitive brain mode. And we have to recognize it and take control of that. And when it comes to mindset too, lean into your faith. You should always be doing that every day, I think, because every day gives us a new set of challenge in every way, right? But leaning into our faith and leaning into the thing that fuels your soul, the practices that work for you, um, this is not the time to abandon those practices, because it's giving something so great to your soul and to your mind to help you prepare for what you're about to walk into. One of the things that I will share, and it kind of ties into mindset, but it's something that my therapist has taught me, and she reminded me of this as I talked to her that day, shortly before my husband's open heart surgery. She reminded me about the importance of not attaching to the outcome. And we talk about this a lot, because when you're a person that is a go-getter and you are, a high achiever, or you are a goal-oriented person, then you set your sight on a goal, and then, you're just hit the gas, foot on the pedal, and you go. And it's easy to get attached to the outcome. And so she really nicely reminded me in that session about not attaching to the outcome, showing up and doing all the things that I am wanting to do and be support and to help my husband go through this experience. But she really nicely, I say nicely because she knows my personality, because, I'm hard-headed, but that not to attach to outcomes. And that kind of goes into relaxing into the present moment, and not attaching. And that doesn't just apply to this scenario. She and I have talked about that so many times on so many different scenarios, but not attaching to the outcome, meaning anything in life, right? You do the work, you put the time in, you do XYZ, and but to stay in the present moment and not attaching too tightly to the outcome, because then that just takes us high and low and high and low. So I'll go into that deeper on another podcast episode, because I don't think I'm giving it enough justice just by saying that, because there's a lot to that, and it's been so beneficial in my life. And as I have navigated some of the rough waters, that's been a really helpful tip. And so I'll do another podcast on that specifically. So I talked about preparing, I talked about mindset, going into it. And now I want to talk about during. So during, meaning and I'm specifically talking about health the surgery that we went through. And then I'm going to talk about what do you do during that? Like when you're going through it, like it's happening today. Now we're in the hospital. Now we're in the ICU. Like we're in it, like it's active and the process is going on. And so it's like where the rubber meets the road, right? I also want to say that my husband and I, we're a really great team. And our mentality is like when a challenge comes up, and in business, this is how our brains work. A challenge comes up, number one, we know we're equipped for it. We just know, even when you don't always, like something like this, you don't know everything, but we know we're equipped. Like we got this. Like we're really good on our feet. We're gonna figure it out. Obviously we know like the grace of God has to be involved in all this process. But as far as the things that we can do to get the best outcome, we're going to definitely do our part. And that's just how we roll. And so it's almost like something, a challenge comes up and we're like, oh, game on, let's go. Let's go. So we always, we got each other's back, and I'm so grateful for that. So anyways, during, like you're in it, like the rubber meets the road, you're in it, like it's going on, and like you've prepared, you've gotten your mind right, you've gotten your spirit right, like you're ready for this challenge. You're like, it's go time. I want to talk to you not as the patient, because I haven't walked that walk, but as the person that's supporting you're supporting your loved one, you're supporting the patient. Number one, you got to take good care of yourself. Okay. I learned this the hard way in the past. And so going into this situation with my husband and his surgery, that was top of mind. Like I will not let myself crumble. I will not get the burnout. I will not crater from exhaustion. I will not, I was not going to let that happen. And so by knowing that and really having that front of mind, I knew I was going to take really good care of myself, because when you're in a really high, I'll call it a high stress situation, and even if it's for a short amount of time, but when you're and what I found in the past and even in this time when being in the ICU, I say high stress, but it's just a high emotion. It is a really intense environment. And so it can exhaust you quickly if you let it. So you have to be very mindful and thoughtful of what are you going to do to shore yourself up in this really intense bubble of time. And I say bubble of time because I remind myself, like, this is a moment in time and we will get through this. So it's a bubble of time, but it's a very intense bubble of time. So that means you got to you got to shore up the stuff that you would do to take really good care of yourself. You've got to really pay attention, because if you aren't doing well, there's no way in heck you're going to be able to be of help to the person that needs you. So take really good care of yourself. You've got to eat well. You've got to hydrate, and you've got to sleep. And I have to tell you that, while definitely there are times that, I have definitely slept in patient hospital rooms a ton. For this particular time, when my husband was in the ICU, knowing that I felt super confident, things were going well, and felt super confident in the staff that was there. And I was really aware of how quickly I can burn out from in this kind of environment, because of understanding my past experience at this before. So I had made the choice at night. I left around 10, 11 p.m., just kind of depending, but my goal was to be out by 11:30, and then home, and then sleep if I could get like 4 or 5 hours sleep, that was good. So then my goal, I'm always, for me personally, it's really top priority to be there at shift change for sure. It for the morning and the night, but those are just really important. I find important times to be in the loop and to make sure that you are getting the information and hearing the information, and also meeting the new person, the new nurse, and taking over at the shift change. So which generally happen at 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. So anyways, taking good care of yourself so you can be your best, eating well, hydrate, and sleep. So like I said, I've slept in many of hospital chairs, and I think you just have to kind of make a game time decision on that. But know that you've got to have sleep, and your body. Like, this maybe isn't going to be your 9 hour sleep at night. All right. But it probably can be a 4 or 5 hour sleeping night, because if you want to come out swinging the next day, you've got to have some sleep. And I knew that about myself. So I went home, I slept, and I got there generally like 6 a.m. So got my sleep, got back, was there like 6 a.m. And then you're there solid for shift change and all the transfer of information that goes on. So you just got to take care of yourself, and know how critical and how important doing those basic things. Like, this is not the time to not eat well. This is this is not the time to go on a diet. You want to make sure you've got to like feed your body, hydrate. You're in a heightened state, so your body's burning through things. I mean, emotionally, all of it. So do not skimp on what you're going to give your body and your mind during this like more condensed, stressful time. To be a patient advocate, which is what you are in that type of situation, because you've got to take good notes. To be a patient advocate, you've got to be there to gather the information, take good notes. I mean, it's so crazy. It's so easy to forget things. Every day I had, as questions came up, I wrote them down, because, when they come in and they ask you, oh, did you have any questions? You're like, so I kept an ongoing log throughout the day, the night, with my questions, with the things that the nurses had said or the doctor had said, and then following up on that. So you've got to treat this like, your loved one is doing their part by healing and recovering and doing what they need to do to heal their body. You need to be the advocate in asking questions, looking for, things that you might that might come up down the road. There aren't, here's my deal. There's no stupid questions. I just live my life by that. Like, if you think my question's dumb, I really don't care. I'm still going to ask my question. So I would rather ask the question and have someone go, well, that's a stupid question, than not. So I really don't care if I've ever asked a question. And it's very few times, especially in a medical environment, have I had someone say, oh, that was a dumb question. I mean, they might be a little irritated with some of your questions, but again, I don't care. So, their feelings about my questions are irrelevant to me. It's more important for me to ask the question and get the response and take the notes. So make sure that you're equipped and ready to do that. And then I talked about being present, like when the doctors make their rounds, which is not shift change. So there's shift change, and knowing what that is and being around then, and then ask questions, like find out, like, generally, and I love to get to know the nursing staff really well. But a lot of times they know particular doctors, like their schedules, like they're more of a, between 2 and 3 p.m. kind of person that they make their rounds. So ask those questions, and it's so beneficial if you can be there when the doctor has made the rounds. Like, not that, I mean, I'm at the hospital all day, but what if you have to go pee? Like, you have to go to the bathroom, right? I mean, what if when you step out for a second, they just pop in, because they can be quick. So you want to get a feel for what the flow is of when the doctors come by. So you are like not away from base camp. So the last thing I want to talk about is some things that when you're in it, like this is during, right? You're in the hospital or you're in ICU. And, like I said, if you've been in the ICU environment, you know that it can be a challenging environment to live in for a little while. And it's imperative that you master your mindset during that time, honestly, through any hospital stay. I mean, the entire time you've got to be top of your game as when you're there supporting a loved one. But here's a few things that during the process I want to toss out to you that you'll want to put. Again, I'm not saying you need to, you're like, I don't have to do this right now. No, but I want you to have this in your toolkit. Okay. Because you never know when you're going to get that phone call and you have to show up for somebody. And then you show up and you're being the support to the person that needs you. And then you are exhausted, you're burnout, you hit the wall, you can't handle it, all the things, which we're human, like that happens. I get it. But I'm giving you things to put in your toolkit. So if that's ever you can be like, oh yeah, I remember listening to that podcast. Oh, I need to do this, or I need to go listen to that podcast again. So these are things that you're going to have in your toolkit, okay, for life. So mentally, here's some things that you need to do. These are going to like when you're in your loved one's in the hospital, when they're in the ICU. This is going to help you stay grounded. It's going to help you stay calm. So note, you're going to want to do these things. I made a list here just because the list can be long, but I'm going to try to touch on just a few of them. I want you to know the power of going outside of that hospital, stepping outside of that door. It is, like I said, it is like when you are dealing with a major health crisis and you are in the ICU and you're in the hospital for any length of time. It becomes like I call it like it's like a time capsule. It's like a pressure cooker. And you've got to step outside and get fresh air and see the blue sky and feel the wind on your skin and step outside and tap into your senses. So I want you to step outside of that building and tap into your senses. Breathe in the fresh air. What are you feeling hit your skin? Is it heat from the sun? Is it cold outside in the cold wind? What are you seeing? Is it blue sky? Is it green trees? Is it snow on the ground? What are you hearing? Do you hear a plane in the sky? Do you hear birds chirping in the trees? Do you hear traffic going by? Do you hear people talking in the parking lot? And then even tap into your taste. What's you have gum in your mouth. You still taste the burrito from lunch. I mean, whatever it might be, you got to tap into your senses. And here's why I suggest that, because number one, it signals to your nervous system to calm down. Even if you're already calm, like you're probably at the heightened level of your calm because of what's going on in the environment that you're in. I mean, let's be real, it's super hard to be, which I have found myself more times than I really want to recollect, being in an ICU and also because you're there with a lot of other patients, and maybe your loved one is doing okay or improving and the person next door is not. You're dealing with a lot of heavy feelings with people, yes, that you don't know, but it is a heaviness that can kind of linger in the ICU, in the hospital. So you've got to extract yourself from that. You need to get outside. You need to tap into your senses. And when you do that, it signals to your nervous system to calm down. It takes you to a much more centered place. So you got to step outside. And not just once a day. When my husband was in the hospital, I did it often. I did it about every 2 to 3 hours, kind of depended on what was going on with, you know, the nurses and the doctors and things like that. But when I saw that window of time, I snagged it. And what happens then is you come back in and you're refreshed and you're regrounded and you're ready to go. So that responsibility is on you. And I feel like when you do that, you're honoring and you're serving the person that you're there to help. So you've got to step away from that environment. You've got to go outside. You've got to tap into your senses, and you've got, while you're there in the room or in the hospital, have things to read, listen to a great podcast. I mean, you've got a lot of time that you want to fill, and you want to keep your brain in a productive state. So have good things that you're feeding into your brain, that you're listening to. Music is great. It's also great for the patient too. We played a lot of music in the room. So music can be great. You have your iPad, bring your Bluetooth speaker. I mean, you want to create an environment there too of healing. You want to create an environment of whatever, it depends on what they let you bring in, but I always push the envelope when it comes to that. I've got all the comforts of home coming. So, every hospital is going to be a little different what they allow, especially in the ICUs. But I'm a big believer in, bringing the things that are familiar and comfortable. And I think that music and sound is really important in the healing process. So as I wrap this up, here's what I want you to take away today. I want you to take away that there are peaks and valleys, high points and low points that we all go through in life. And there are often times, not often, I will say there will be times that you could be like, right on the peak. And then all of a sudden, now you feel like you are falling off the cliff and something really major has come up. And you need to have a skill set, a toolkit that you can go to, that you can rely on when you feel like you're on some shaky ground, so that jump off the cliff actually feels more like a speed bump. And the reason is because you're going to feel more equipped. You're going to know the tools and the resources that you need to be giving yourself so that you can turn this really big thing into just a speed bump for yourself. So save this podcast episode, because you honestly never know when you're going to need it. And it's really a great reminder that your personal development is your responsibility. It's nobody else's responsibility to make you better at being you. That's really what that is. And so you have to ask yourself, am I doing the things to invest the time in improving my own personal growth? Because these things I'm talking about to put in the toolkit, this is about you developing yourself from the inside out. And when you do that, you will be much better equipped to handle when these, what we're going to call speed bumps in life, come up. And I want that for you. I want you to coast right through it. I want you to have the things at your disposal that allow you to move through that without burning out, without crashing and burning, and feeling good about yourself in the process. Because I know you want to, in the situation like I talked about today, if you ever find yourself there, you want to show up and be the very best version of you. This is not the time to show up as the halfway version of you. You want to show up as the best version of you. And so there's things that you could be doing right now to improve your own personal development and your own personal growth that will guarantee that for you. Okay, my friend, that wraps this little conversation up. And I'm so glad you joined me today. Be sure and like and subscribe this podcast, and I will see you guys next week. Until then, go make it fabulous. I want to thank you for tuning in today to the podcast, and I hope you've enjoyed the conversation and all the info that's been shared today. And I hope you've come away with a few ideas on how to make the most out of it for your life. If you loved this episode, be sure to share it with your friends and family. And also make sure you subscribe to the podcast and tap that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Also, it would mean the absolute world to me if you would leave a podcast review. So until next time, my friend, keep flourishing and thriving and live your life to the